Alright, good evening folks, it's Enforcer Matt and welcome back to another short war video, and today we have very big news coming from pretty much every region of the world. But by far our biggest piece of news of the day is coming out of Europe, as we have gotten word of a large-scale power outage hitting Spain, Portugal, France, and parts of Belgium, and right now it is absolute chaos as traffic lights aren't working, the trains are stopping right on the tracks and letting passengers right onto the tracks, and it is absolute chaos, causing Spain to declare a limited state of emergency to deal with a sudden issue. We also have big news as well that Pakistan is sending yet even more heavy equipment, tanks, and artillery to the border with India, and it sounds like that Pakistan's defense minister says that war is imminent and also brings up the possible use of nuclear weapons if their country feels their territorial existence is threatened to the maximum. We've also gotten word as well that Russia was attacked last night by Ukraine in Bryansk at a microelectronics facility, causing severe damage, and we also have very big news about China as well, dealing with the Philippines. But with that, we're now jumping into our first article of the day, which goes to Nexta. So this is certainly our biggest story of the day. Right now, like I mentioned, we are hearing of a massive scale blackout in Europe, and residents in Spain, Portugal, France, and Belgium are reporting major outages. The airports and subways are shut down, and the communication networks have been hit, and Madrid's Barajas airport is now out of service according to El Mundo, and there's been no official calls confirmed as of yet, but the chaos is certainly unfolding. And we actually do have a video here showing the actual airport in Madrid actually fully out of power and the emergency lights kicked on, so that way the passengers can at least leave the airport and see their way out of the airport. So let's take a look at our first video from the Madrid airport and see the power outage in action. So there you have it, our first scene from the Madrid airport. As you can see, the power is completely out at this airport. And this is a very large airport, by the way, in Spain. And as you can see, the passengers are trying to get their way through the dark hallways, and there are some emergency lights on in the building because, of course, there are backup generators. But as you can see, the power is completely out, and this is causing panic among some people because apparently this is causing people to really freak out quite badly. So some people are panicking. But as you can see right here, these people are calm at least, and they are leaving the airport safely. But that is our first video of the power outage. But moving on to our next post here, this one's going to go to Polymarket Intel. And in this post right here, we get some more details in our first glimpse of what could have caused this major power outage. And right now we're hearing from Portugal's grid operator, they are blaming a rare atmospheric phenomenon for causing the mass power outages. Now, once again, there are a lot of critics and a lot of skeptics about that statement because, of course, Europe has been attacked by Russia in hybrid attacks similar to this one before in the past. So people are wondering, is this a hybrid attack by Russia or China through cyber attacks? But nobody's really sure, but the Portugal grid operator says it's a rare atmospheric phenomenon according to them, at least in a preliminary sense. So that is what they're saying. But also, we do have in this post another video showing us the aftermath of the power outage as a train had to stop right on the tracks and let the passengers right out beside the tracks because of the power going out. So let's take a look at that one and see what happened. And there you have it. Look at that. A train stopped right on the sides of the tracks here in Portugal, and the people were just literally wandering down the street and wandering up and down it because the train is fully out of power. So that is crazy to see as well. Everybody's just camped out right here on the grass, but yeah, totally out of power, and there's a train just completely stopped right there. And that's not the only one we've seen today, but that is the main one we've seen on camera, at least for right now. So jumping into our next post here, this one's going to go to Open Source Intel. And not only have the trains had an issue, but also right in central Madrid in Spain, we've seen massive traffic jams hit central Madrid as the traffic lights are failing due to the power outage, and we also have a video showing that as well, and the absolute chaos happening right in the streets of Madrid. So let's take a look at that video and see the chaos in action. But as you can see, a lot of honking, a lot of chaos, and nobody really knows how to deal with the power outage happening because once again, the traffic lights are out, so people are having to go by the road rules, and it looks like a lot of people don't know the road rules. So it's just chaos. People are zooming around one another, buses are cutting people off. It's just all over the place. So as you can see right there, the traffic lights going out is certainly not a good thing when it comes to cities and having issues with traffic. So there you go, right there on camera. But jumping into our next post here, this one's going to go to World Source News 24/7. And in this post right here, we get another view of another train and metro system in Lisbon, Portugal, coming to a standstill with journeys being suspended and the passengers wandering down the sides of the tracks after the train came to a standstill yet again. So let's take a look at this one and see what happened. And as you can see it looks like there's another tram or train stopped right there, and this time the passengers are walking right down the sides of the tracks to get away from it, so that is certainly a bad situation. And of course, I'm sure first responders are very tied up right now, so they probably can't get to these people, so they're having to take matters in their own hands and just wander right down the tracks. So there you have it, another issue like that with a train right there in Portugal. So very bad to see. But jumping into our next post here, this one's going to go to Disclosed TV. And with all this chaos erupting, we are now seeing that Madrid, meaning Spain, they've activated upgraded to status 2 of the territorial emergency plan in response to widespread power outages in Spain, and also Madrid's community president asked the government to activate status 3 so that way the Spanish military can guarantee order. So as we can see, they are wanting to call out the military immediately to get order of the situation and ensure that they don't fall into civil chaos, and we're seeing that right here. So status 2 is indeed activated, meaning there is a territorial emergency response plan in place in Spain right now, and they're trying to upgrade it to status 3, and right now we're not sure if that's actually been done or not, but it looks like the military could be deployed imminently to deal with the chaos. So certainly a big response. But jumping into our next post here, this one also goes to Disclosed TV. And in this post right here, we hear from Portugal's grid operator. They say it's impossible to predict when electricity will be restored according to Publico, and that is also a bad piece of news because apparently they don't even know how soon it can be repaired based on what the grid operator is saying. So I don't know when it's going to be turned back on. I've seen people say it might take a day. Some people say it might take weeks. Nobody really knows right now. So it could be off for a while. And once again, the cause of this is going to be a big point of investigation to figure out what actually caused this, if it was a phenomenon in the atmosphere. So we'll have to wait and see. But that is the current news from the grid operator. But jumping into our next post here, this one goes to open source intel. So for right now, that is all of our news about the Spain, Portugal, France issue with the power outage. So we're now going to move on to our news about Pakistan and India, because things are heating up quite rapidly between those two countries yet again today in a very concerning way. So right now we have seen more non-stop Pakistan military movements to India's border, and we have seen tanks on trains heading right to the border. So let's take a look at our first video and see the new heavy deployments heading out to India. And there you can see there is more Pakistani military equipment being sent by train right to the Indian border, and you can see there are clearly tanks, there's also supply vehicles and support vehicles as well right on this train. So Pakistan is not backing down, and apparently they mean business, and they're going to go to war with the Indians over this issue that started in Kashmir. So certainly a bad one to see, and once again another major escalation by the Pakistanis. But jumping into our next post here, this one also goes to open source intel, and we've also seen major Pakistani helicopter movement near India's border as well, showing that Pakistan is deploying pretty much everything they have, getting ready to either attack India or defend their country against an Indian attack. So it's not clear at the moment which one's going to happen first, but let's take a look at this video and see the helicopters being deployed. And there they go, Pakistani helicopters heading straight to the Indian border, as you can see, and they are certainly gearing up. And in my opinion, that's probably not the wisest thing to do, since Pakistan was basically the one who started this entire situation by happening. So this is certainly a major bold move by Pakistan, and showing that they are meaning business, like I mentioned, and there they go, right there to the border. So there goes the helicopters, and you see that right there on the footage. But jumping into our next post here, this one goes to OSINT warfare. And not only is the Pakistanis moving tons of equipment to the border, but also we've seen major Indian military movements as well, spotted in Jammu City and also near Kashmir last night. So we've seen big deployments by their side as well, this time I believe by truck and maybe train. So let's take a look at this video and see the Indian deployments also in action going to the border. And there they go. That is Indian military convoys of trucks, and there appears to be some sort of maybe a tanker or some type of light vehicle right there on the back of a trailer that the Indians are carrying right to the border. So more Indian deployments being seen right here, just as more proof of it, and also some support vehicles behind it. So there's more proof of that. But jumping into our next post here, this one's going to go to Inside Geopolitics. And after seeing all of the military deployments by both Pakistan and India, we've gotten a statement from Pakistan's defense minister about the state of the conflict, and right now he says that Pakistan is on high alert and will only use an arsenal of nuclear weapons, quote unquote, if there's a direct threat to their existence. And the minister also claims that a military incursion by India is imminent, according to Reuters. So that is the first really bold statement we've heard from Pakistan, basically committing that a war is going to take place, a total war between the two countries, and apparently that is coming up in an imminent fashion, and that's why they're deploying so much military equipment. So certainly not heading toward peace right now, and it looks like this Pakistan-India situation is right in the very beginning stages of popping off in a very bad way. Even though they've already been fighting along the border, it's about to get apparently much worse, according to Pakistan's defense minister. So jumping into our next post here, this one goes to Anton Gerashenko. And it's now time to move on from our India and Pakistan news and move on to our Russia-Ukraine news, because there's still massive news coming out of Russia and Ukraine. And in this post right here, we can see that Russian Telegram channels report a drone attack at Kremeny, the microelectronics plant in the Bryansk region of Russia. And this is the 5th attack of Kremeny since the start of the full-scale war. And the the plant produces a wide range of chips and components used, among others, in the T'Pol-M, the S-300 and S-400 air defense systems, and also the Pantsir air defense systems, the Iskander missiles, radar and electronic warfare systems, and Russian drones. So clearly, a very important facility that was struck yet again by the Ukrainians for the 5th time ever since the start of the war. So we do have 2 videos from it showing the impact and also the aftermath of it. So let's take a look at the first video, which is the impact, and see it in action. And right here, you can see, there is the impact at Kremeny microelectronics plant in Bryansk, and you see it right there, and the Russian car alarms are going quite crazy in the background, but you can see the Ukrainian drone coming right down on top of it and exploding right on the roof. So a direct hit, and it looks like it'll have some severe damage from that strike. But also, let's take a look at our second video to see the aftermath. And there you can see it. There's a lot of smoke coming up from that facility, proving that it did cause indeed very large damage to that microelectronics plant. So a very good hit by the Ukrainians, and there's proof that it has been struck quite badly. But jumping into our next post here, this one is going to go to Polymarket Intel. And we're now hearing a big, bold demand from Putin after Putin refused to agree to a Ukraine ceasefire after Ukraine already agreed to one themselves. Russia is now demanding that Ukraine abide by a Victory Day ceasefire, and they're now saying from the Kremlin that Russian forces will respond decisively if Ukraine violates the Russian-imposed ceasefire during the Victory Day celebration. So Russia is unilaterally imposing this on Ukraine after they refused, like I mentioned, to actually negotiate a ceasefire agreement. So this is something they're imposing, so we'll have to wait and see if Ukraine abides by this unilateral ceasefire or not, but I have a feeling they might not abide by it, and they're still going to attack anyway. So there you have it. That's pretty much the Russian MO at this point, is to be obstinate and then demand they get something their way. So of course, that is the typical MO of the Kremlin. But jumping into our next post here, this one's going to go to War Translated. And as you all may know on this channel, we do not cover politics, but in this one rare instance, I am going to bring up a statement made by a U.S. Senator today, because a U.S. Senator, a very strong ally of the U.S. President, has said today that the President needs to be ready to turn Putin and Russia into quote-unquote fish food. And that is a very strong statement without even having to say that. That is a very strong statement coming from a senator, which is very close to the President. So it sounds like the tides are turning very quickly in the background, at least amongst the allies here, that apparently Putin is about to get on the short end of the stick, and they're about to be on the bad, negative side of the U.S. President's foreign policy. So it looks like a major pivot is probably coming based on these statements, because we've never heard those before, ever, between these people right here. So very interesting to see. But jumping into our next post here, this one goes to the Euromaidan Press. And one reason why that might be changing very rapidly is we are getting word today that Russia is building up its military presence near Finland's border extremely rapidly, and they're constructing new military facilities and expanding troop presence along Finland's border at a pace that has alarmed Western military officials. So they are moving in close to Finland, which is now a NATO member, and they're trying to intimidate them quite badly by building up these military facilities and also sending tons of troops near the Finnish border. So it is certainly a big move by Russia. It's something they've been doing for quite some time, but it sounds like they're ramping it up quite dramatically in the recent days. And that's probably what's prompting the U.S. to have this sudden change. And also Russia is not negotiating either. So that's another big issue. So a lot of issues adding up, and Russia is still stepping on the gas when it comes to speeding up conflicts around the world. But with that, it's now time to move on to our next news article here, and this one goes to Polymarket Intel. And for the first time ever, moments after Kim Jong-un's order to officially enter the war in Ukraine on Russia's behalf, Russia's revealed footage of North Korean troops training with Russian forces, and we have a very cheesy video right here showing us the North Koreans, who are very, very malnutrition, out here trying to fight a war. So let's take a look at the video that Russia put out for propaganda and see what they're trying to portray. And look, there they are. It's the North Koreans. They're right here in Russia. And he's telling us something about how they know how to fight so well, even though they can barely afford to maintain their own country's food stockpile. But there they go, firing some guns out there, getting some guys pointing. You see some Russians out there training with them, and they are running around like they pretending like they know what they're doing out there. But we, of course, know that they do not know what they're doing, because, of course, the North Koreans are used by the Russians as the fish food, like the U.S. Senator was talking about. They're used as fish food on the front lines, and they're sent out first to get butchered by the Ukrainians. So the Russians use them quite badly, and they're trying to make it seem like they're really good allies right here, but of course the Russians are abusing the hell out of the North Korean troops, and we've seen that for months now. So there they are, throwing some grenades and practicing, firing some more guns, and as you can see, they are firing some more, firing some extra, and even firing a little bit more than that. So just another propaganda film showing the North Koreans there, and the significance of it is that is the first one we've seen out of this area, at least from Russia. So jumping into our next post here and move on from that article, this one goes to GMI, Global Military Info. And this is our last big story of the day. It's going to round our video out, and this is still a very large story, by the way, so stick around for it. And we're hearing today that the Philippine Marines, National Police, and Coast Guard forces landed on 3 contested South China Sea islands, directly responding to recent Chinese Coast Guard landings aimed at asserting Beijing's sovereignty. And in response, China's Coast Guard declared it dealt with the 6 Filipino personnel accused of unlawfully landing on a contested sandbank in the South China Sea. So we did see before that a Vietnamese island was taken by the Chinese military a day or so ago. It was the San Kay Island, and it was taken by the Chinese. And we've also seen that a Filipino crew has now shown up and taken another island, or at least tried to take it, and now the Chinese quote-unquote dealt with them, and we still don't know what that means. They could have been shot at, or they could have been arrested, or maybe just run off. We don't know really what that means, but still a very big escalation nonetheless. Either way it was handled by the Chinese. And once again, the Chinese are really expanding their reach in the South China Sea, and it's certainly getting really out of control really quick between multiple different countries and China. But with that, folks, that is actually our last piece of news for the day. So I hope you've enjoyed today's video, and once again, tons of news coming from pretty much every region today. But before you leave, before you go, smack the like button, and also if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel as well for more daily war updates just like this one. And we do appreciate all the kind words in the comments. And if you watched the video to this point, go down below and put Portugal in the comments to let us know you watched to this point. And once again, we appreciate that very much. And also, if you want to support the channel financially, you can do so on our Patreon page, and the link is in the description below for Patreon. And once again, a big shout out to our Patreon supporters for making these videos possible, and we do appreciate y'all's support very much. So with that, folks, we will see you all tomorrow night at 10 p.m. Eastern on our next nightly war news stream, and also maybe midday tomorrow as well for another short war video. But in the meantime, we'll see you then, and bye bye for now.